Hi, Mike. Thanks a lot for taking time out of your schedule and making yourself available for this call. First of all, congratulations on passing your FE exam on the first attempt. So, could you please walk me through your journey as to when you graduated, when you really decided to take the FE exam, and what was your preparation like, and what was the approach that you took?
All right. Thank you so much, Wasim. And as for my journey of passing the FE exam, there was a lot of controversy on whether or not I should take it because I graduated during the time of when the pandemic started and during
Yeah,
quarantine. So originally, as strange as it sounds, I was originally supposed to take it around February
February
of
of.
um, of 2020. That's correct.
Okay, all right.
And since quarantine, or actually almost late of February, that's correct. And when quarantine started, they kind of had a delay or asked me to reschedule my exam.
Yeah, they canceled a lot of exams. Yeah.
And during that time phase, I was like, okay, well, maybe I might schedule when I start. But during that time, one of my coworkers, he told me, as soon as you take it, please take it as soon as possible because the further you let it out, especially whenever you're 3 years, 2 years out of school, you're going to tend to forget these concepts.
Exactly.
But at the time, though, I decided to let it go a little bit further in, and 6 months in, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to take the exam as soon as possible.
Right. For sure. And were
Yeah.
you working at the time? You mentioned February, right? Your exam got canceled in February. So had you graduated in 2020 February, or were you
Oh, I graduated in
graduating?
2020 in June. I was supposed to take it during the time when I was in school.
Oh, okay, okay. That's even more proactive. Yeah. Okay.
And so during that time, I was taking the practice exam that was issued by the NCEE or NCEES. So when I took it, I saw how much I got wrong, the score,
Right.
and I saw how much I got more than half of it wrong when I first took
Right.
the practice exam. So I was like, okay, well, I need to do something about it.
Yeah.
So I took, the Lindbergh, the Green Book.
hmm
I'm not sure you know about it. What's it? I'm pretty sure you do.
The green and yellow book. Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's
I've
correct.
never
I took
used it, but
that,
yeah.
and when I was looking through, it was a little too much, I say. It was a lot of unnecessary information, especially considering that they added a lot of the topics in there that was not in the exam for that matter. So I decided to go to other sources, and that's when I ran into your book, Wasim.
Okay.
And I noticed that you cover almost actually all the topics in the exam. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, let me go ahead and get this book on Amazon,
Okay.
both the second and the third edition.
All right.
So when I came across that, I was okay. Well, all right. Well, how am I going to do this? So I got through your book and I saw how simple your book was. So I was like, wow, everything just so organized. Everything was so easy to come by.
Thank you.
And that's when I ran across your books, and I was like, hey, why don't I try out your course? Because there was one course that I was missing, and I did not take during my time at at school, and I chose the power system route. So I didn't take communications or signals and systems two, which is mostly controls, right?
Well, that's about at least two sections, right?
Yeah, that's two
Communications,
sections.
controls, and maybe a little bit of signal processing as well.
That's correct.
Yeah. So two and a half, I would say. Yeah.
Yes. When I came across your website, I heard that you were doing courses or videos on. I was like, okay, you know what? Let me go ahead and try them out.
Okay.
So when I came across your videos, I was like, wow, this is a lot better than. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not trying to put anybody in the pedestal, but when I watch your videos, they're a lot more clear than what I took in the class. To be
Okay.
honest, they're so clear, they're straightforward, and everything you explained in those videos were very, I don't know per se, like accurate. and they're
Yeah.
very easy to understand too. Very easy.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate that. I'm glad that you found it that way. I mean, it's a balancing act because, well, to be honest, you're not starting from scratch. So maybe
yeah,
when in university, when you're taking courses, your professor has to sort of lay that foundation, right? And then
yeah,
build upon it, right? So I guess I have the edge of not really necessarily laying the entire foundation,
yeah,
but strategically targeting areas which I know students find difficult and try to explain them as simply as possible.
that's correct.
Yeah.
And yeah, I watched both those videos, and after I watched, gone ahead and actually practiced the problems on the book on that certain course, like communication. I watched a video on your videos on communications, and then after I watched your video, I actually gone ahead and did the problems. And
Right. When in my mind as well, when I say communication, sometimes it gets blurry, whether it's just communication, whether it's signal processing, because when you combine the two, then yeah, it looks like a fair bit of question, fair bit
yeah,
of content, right? So I think that also happens when you're looking at linear systems and circuits, right? That also happens when you're looking at computer networks and computer systems, because some of these topics, or maybe throw software in that as in there as well. So those three sections are very closely related. I would say there's quite a bit of overlap. And no, I'm glad you basically recognize that, okay, this is a gap, this is a weakness, and I need to address it. You'd be surprised how many students uh, they try and even take the approach of skipping a section altogether,
yeah,
which in my opinion is not worth it, because yeah, every attempt costs you time, every attempt costs you effort, and it costs you money, right? So if you're trying to short circuit the system, it's not going to work. I mean, it might if you're super strong in everything else, but
yeah,
why take the chances? So I think your approach was very prudent and very pragmatic, and you recognize that, okay, and from the get-go, the fact that you attempted the practice exam right away, to sort of gauge yourself, although this is not something that I generally recommend. Okay, I generally recommend that, okay, you go through the entire exam preparation, review everything that you need to review, and then maybe 2 to 3 weeks out, or even 4 weeks out, you basically try the practice exam to
yeah,
see whether you're ready or not. But you took an opposite approach, which is advisable for someone who's exactly in your position, that is a recent graduate or in your final year of study, because you feel like, okay, I have recently taken a lot of these courses, so let's test it out. And nothing against your academic performance, but it's just that the exam is conducted in a certain format, in a certain, so you have to be familiar with the content of the exam, of the specification, right? You could have done A star, you could have been an A star student, but still, like, if even if you have an electronics PhD, and if you ask him or her solve a bunch of MOSFET and op-amp questions, I mean, they are not going to be able to solve those questions in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I can guarantee you, right?
that's
Because it requires you to sort of work through that process and go through the content and the reference handbook. So that's really smart of you, Mike.
all right.
And so you completed the course, and at what point did you feel that you were ready for this?
That point, that's when I felt ready, when I was basically going through almost all your book except the computer portion.
Okay.
Because there's absolutely, like you said, you need that, even though you need that foundation, right? Like you said
Right.
earlier,
Yeah.
I had no foundation whatsoever in the computer portion part.
So when you say
I
computer
mean,
portion, can you elaborate, like networks, systems,
yeah,
software?
networks, that's
Okay.
correct. OSI layers,
Okay.
um, a little bit of the coding questions in there too.
Yeah,
I'm
software.
not
Yeah.
sure what
Hmm.
portion that was in, but I had to do my best on those. But
Right.
that's when I felt ready. That's when I completed some of your projects. Sometimes I did actually gone over back in your book,
Okay.
Wasim, and actually redo some of the problems too. And whenever I get them right, that's when I feel ready.
That's good.
You know, so
And did you go through
Oh,
all the lectures in the course on computer network? There are about 20 lectures on computer networks. It's a lot of content for just 4 questions.
I'm sorry, Wasim, that was a lot. It
Yeah.
was yeah. I saw the computer networks course on there, and they're 30 minutes each.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let me get the chance on. I know I wouldn't recommend doing to take the risk for that,
Yeah.
but I knew that most of it is going to cover, probably more than half of it is going to cover the electrical portion as opposed to the computer networks portion.
Right. No, that's good to know. And did you use the practice exams as well? The sample exam, I strongly recommend students to take that. But did you try out any other practice exams as well?
Um, on no, I don't think I have. No,
Okay, so you basically relied on the course and the study guide, second edition
that's
and the third
correct.
edition. Okay. And were you comfortable during the exam? What were your feelings like? Did you
Actually,
walking out of the exam, what did you feel like? That you had it in the bag or
I felt I felt mixed because I don't want to. It's kind of strange, but if I feel too good about it, it's gonna end up bad.
okay.
If I feel too bad about it, I'm gonna do well. So I had a mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, I guess you can never be 100% sure until you see the result. You see that
That's
green
true.
passing, you know, that you passed or whatever it says, right? No, that's great. That's a quite thing, Mike. It has. So, at what point did you get your full-time job?
At that point, so actually, I got my full time job around April before I graduated because I knew I had to apply
Right.
because I
Mm-hmm.
because to be honest, Dr. Wasim, or Wasim,
Just for some,
I
yeah.
I didn't have good internship experience. The only
Okay.
internship experience I had was working at a student camp
Okay.
to teach children or campers how to guess code, basic code like for statements or else statements, basic things like that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really a good, really well internship experience.
Yeah.
So
Not
by
not a
then I
strong
had to,
industrial experience. Okay. But you
yeah,
started early with your interview process,
that's
and
correct.
right now you're working as a SCADA engineer. You told me.
Yes,
Yeah, at a utility. That's pretty impressive. How do you think your FE exam, passing the FE exam, has helped you at your job?
help me. So after passing the FA exam, I think that's when they took me out in a meeting, right, with both the supervisor as well as the chief officer at the power delivery system. They told me, hey, we're gonna actually give you a promotion to be an engineer two, because when I started, I was engineer one,
Oh,
right?
nice. That's pretty good. And you didn't even ask for it, I guess, right?
Yeah, I didn't even bother asking for it. They're just like, hey, you passed your FE, because that gives you so much responsibility. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
Getting that EIT certification does really help a lot,
Right.
because that knows that they ensure that they trust you. You know your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So you got a promotion out of it, more responsibility.
that's correct.
I assume more exciting projects as well.
Yes. So
That's
when I
nice.
mentioned the capital projects, that's right after I passed my exam. That's what they kind of threw me under almost.
Nice.
Work on the whole substation, make sure all the points were good, making sure that I actually create the points and do a trip check with people out in the field on relay.
Nice.
So it was a
That's
lot.
good.
I didn't do any of that before when I started, so it was a nice experience.
That's good. So FE has helped you with a nice raise, hopefully a promotion, more responsibilities, more recognition. But you got to take it all the way to the PE, right?
Yeah, I'm going to take it all the way to P. Hopefully, I'll take the PE next year or this year,
Okay.
because South Carolina is a little different. Because I'm not sure about North Carolina. North Carolina, I heard that you have to have 4 years of experience before you take the PE to get it signed off, correct?
Okay.
But in South Carolina, you could take the PE first, then you could, work for 4 years and then get it signed off by somebody that's under a PE.
Yeah, there are a lot of
So,
states like that actually. South Carolina is not the only one. You have Texas, you have Florida,
wow.
I believe Nevada as well. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I would say at least a dozen states allow you to take the FE, the PE exam right after passing the FE exam. and then you can basically wait for your 4 years of experience to complete. In many ways, I think it's pretty good because you are sort of in that zone of preparing for exams and you can get over with it, and it helps you sort of cash in on that momentum, right? Now that you get all of these exams out of the way, you can basically just focus on your experience, getting the referrals, and just wait for time to pass in a meaningful way where you are gaining the relevant and acceptable experience. So yeah, I think overall it's a good thing. Yeah.
Right.
All right. What would be your advice, or in terms of students who are thinking about taking the FE and are not too sure? You said that initially you were also not 100% sold on it, right? Whether you should take it right out of school, whether you should wait. So your colleagues or your friends told you, okay, don't wait 2 years or 3 years. So what would be your advice to students regarding FE exam if they're intimidated by it, if they're a little bit afraid of it, procrastinating, I guess?
Okay, so I definitely would not recommend procrastinating for it. That's a no go for me, please.
Right.
Well, it really depends. For any student that's out there that's about to graduate, I recommend taking it before you graduate or a little bit after you graduate. And maybe if you don't go on the first try, maybe use your books for that matter. Wasim, use
Okay.
maybe the third edition, the newest edition of the book,
Hmm.
and if you've been sorry, excuse me, 2 or 3 years out of school, or maybe even for some examples, some people in my workplace that haven't taken the FE for 10 years,
Yeah,
right?
you don't want to get into that. I mean, I have a lot of students who are 10 plus years. A lot of students, I would say about 50% of the students
Wow.
are 10 plus years, right? Because you know what, Mike, it's at that point, in your case, you didn't even realize that the FE was going to result in a raise, in a promotion, in more responsibilities, better projects, right? But it reaches a point if you don't have your FE and PE, right? You've been working at your job, you've been doing everything, and you're silently expecting or maybe even actively pursuing that promotion. But it's at 7 year mark, 10 year mark, you get to know that, okay, there is a ceiling. And the only way to break that ceiling is to get my licensure, right? And
That's
at
correct.
that point, they're in a state where if they want their career to sort of go from here to here, then they have to get the FE. And that's why I guess it's uh, the number of students with that profile is so significant, so large. Yeah.
That's true.
And it's difficult. It's difficult. It's not
Yeah. Oh,
easy.
yeah. It's very difficult. But for somebody in that position, I recommend taking your course, the video courses, because I know maybe for some people, once they're out of school for so long, maybe your practice book isn't enough for that matter. But it's especially excellent for somebody that's taking the videos. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Wasim? So I feel like once they take or actually take the course, they won't know it, but they'll be familiar with it, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
That way, when they're familiar with it, they understand it more. And then once they understand more, they're actually able to do the practice problems maybe
Right.
a little bit with a little more ease, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I would say not only the students, and definitely students who are out of school for several years, they require a little bit more level of effort and maybe more streamlined resources, right? And I'm glad that you think that the course is going to help them. But even for someone like you, right? Because you were fresh out of school, and I would say that it
Yeah,
also applies to students who are fresh out of school, because if you start working full time, right, your time is very limited, right?
that's true.
You have to be very efficient with your studying, right? Let's put it that way. So when you're sitting for 1 hour, you want to get maximum done in that hour,
That's true.
right? Yeah, maybe if you're just preparing for the exam full time, it's a different story, right? You can try and do research on your own, maybe be a little bit inefficient with your studying process, at least in the context of FE, right? I mean, it's fun to learn new things, and we can learn things in so many different ways. But if you have a specific scope, specific project, then how effective you are in making sure that the time you're putting in is basically counting towards that progress, right? So
Yes.
uh, so yeah, I guess even if students who are fresh out of school, I think they can benefit as well. And what are the specific things that you liked about the online course?
The online course, I feel the one thing that I love the most about it is that you were saying that you were actually able to make the courses to a point where you're actually able to divide yourself between, you know, or actually better say it, it's a point where you can actually utilize your time after work. Because I see that your courses, each of the topics were 15, 30 minutes, give or take,
Mostly, yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So most of the time, whenever, let's say you watch a 30-minute video on one topic, you could take almost an hour of your time out after work,
Right,
just watch the videos and then take 30 minutes to actually do the practice problems.
right,
That's what basically I did for those two topics that I mentioned, both controls and communications.
right,
So it's just that time utilization that most people at my workplace don't have, and I feel that they could be more beneficial if they watch your videos. Take almost just an hour a day. That's all it takes.
right,
That's how I found it more helpful for your course, both your course and your practice exam book or
right.
the practice book.
And in terms of the coverage, you think that the course covered pretty much everything that was supposed to be covered for the
Oh yeah,
exam? Okay.
that's correct.
And in terms of the depth, you found the explanation simple and easy to follow.
That's true.
Right. Sounds
I
good.
found it very easy to follow. I found it that it was very beneficial, especially if you're trying to relearn the foundations.
Right.
And also, I do want to note that I feel that there were some people that do have trouble on some of the trickier questions, and that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
Everyone would have trouble on
yeah,
trickier questions, right?
but I mean, as long as you learn the foundations, as long as you know the foundations and apply those foundations to those
Right.
problems, you should be, get away with no ease. Because I see people that are like, after, some of my friends in college, they take the exam, right? They're like, Michael, I don't know how you get through that exam. There was one problem that had a op amp with a capacitor connected to it. How am I able to do that? But
Right.
you're actually able to learn the basics already. Just apply what you know about op amps
And the
and
capacitors.
yeah, on the capacitor.
Yeah, what happens to capacitors when they have a DC source connected to them, right?
That's true.
Right. So yeah, you got to put all of those pieces together. Yeah. All right. I really appreciate your time again. Thanks, Mike. And congratulations again on passing the exam on first attempt. It is a challenging project, right? It is a challenging exam. No matter how you look at it, it takes a certain amount of time. It takes a certain amount of effort. It takes a certain amount of your headspace, right, to get it
That's
done.
true.
There's no way around it. So I'm glad that you were able to get it done sooner rather than later, and it has already resulted in a lot of good things for you. And just push forward with your PE and get those credentials, and it will benefit you for the rest of your career.
All
So
right.
yeah, thank you. Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you so much, Wasim. I
Uh,
appreciate for
okay.
all you done, the courses and the practice books as well. They were so helpful.